What is a study? Welcome to Cyworthy's Guide to the Many Flavors of Research. Experiments. This may be what most people imagine when they hear a study was conducted. So let's go through the most common types of experiments you might encounter when reading our website or researching something you want to know. While this is not an exhaustive list, I'm going to group them into 5 major categories: laboratory experiments, field experiments, mathematical modeling, surveys, and data science. A laboratory is not just a place where people in white coats pour liquids into glass containers. A laboratory is any facility that provides controlled conditions in which scientific or technological research, experiments, and measurements may be performed. Laboratory experiments vary quite a bit. A lab can be a doctor's office, a microbiology lab, a chemistry lab, or even the Large Hadron Collider, where important physics experiments are conducted. Field experiments can be observational or exploratory, where samples are collected and measurements can be taken to better understand an environment, such as in geosciences or in the animal sciences. Or experiments can be deliberately set up in these environments to understand how a natural setting influences an experimental outcome, such as what's done in agriculture. Modeling experiments are performed when field or lab experiments are impossible or impractical, either due to ethics, the number of comparisons needed, or just a limited ability to access the experimental conditions. Modeling involves computers solving equations hundreds or thousands of times using different variables to understand what might occur in real life. These equations represent reality using known physical laws. The further from physical laws the models are, the messier they are. We have climate models, economic models, epidemiological models, molecular models, and more. Surveys and interviews can be used in research as well. Researchers will have a certain hypothesis and will interview or survey people using questions designed to gather data as objectively as possible. That will help the researchers test their hypothesis by analyzing the survey responses. Because of improvements in technology, there's a lot of data out there needing to be analyzed. The field of data science broadly involves making use of the large amounts of data generated from experiments to explore even more hypotheses that weren't considered previously or couldn't be considered due to technological limitations. Researchers can use data from past experiments in almost every field. They may not have conducted the experiment themselves, but they use the data generated to learn even more things. Experiments all have one thing in common: variables. Variables are things that might impact the outcome of a study. Here's a mock-up of a general experiment. The columns are experimental conditions, the things being tested upon, whether it is individuals, groups of people, foods, treatments, physical objects, bacteria. There's always a control condition. The controls of an experiment help you rule out other unintended influences. It basically establishes a baseline for your comparison. The rows are the characteristics being tested, and they may or may not vary across the conditions. In an experiment, you should only change one variable at a time. In this example, size, color, and temperature are kept the same, and weight is varied. It's assumed in this example, I just made this up, that 3 kilograms is the normal and that 1 and 2 are the unknown. So a question you might imagine being asked here is, what happens if less weight is applied than the typical 3 kilograms? That variable can be anything. It can be an educational intervention, a treatment, or anything else you're testing. If you change more than one variable at a time, you won't know which change was responsible for your results. So, only change one thing at a time. As with anything, there are trade-offs involved. Laboratory experiments may provide you with more accurate results about the mechanism underlying whatever question you're asking. So that will give you more confidence that the variable you changed is what impacted the outcome. But it may not be true to life. Life doesn't exist in controlled settings. Life is messy, so field experiments might be closer to reality, but you'll be less certain of the mechanisms behind what happened. Models can be more or less reliable depending on how well the equations represent reality. You might hear scientists saying annoying hedging words like maybe, possibly, or might. This is not because they're just making stuff up. It's because they acknowledge that all data has uncertainty. The entire field of statistics is concerned with what to do about the fact that we can't ever have exactly precise data. There's always error. Error is kind of like the blurriness around a point. Like reality's in there somewhere. So it's a lot more precise than just making stuff up, but it's not perfectly precise. Other kinds of studies you might come across are literature reviews. These are comprehensive summaries of everything published about a certain topic. Yes, everything. So they are much more reliable than an op-ed or a persuasive article. Those types of articles only select sources that support a certain argument. Literature reviews select all the sources, even if they contradict, and attempt to make sense of the contradictions. They often include suggestions for what research to do next to fill in the gaps in understanding. Hypothesis papers are another type of non-experimental paper you might find. These papers make a case for why a certain outcome might be expected in an experiment that has not been done yet, using evidence from previous findings. They are papers making a case for why a certain question or phenomenon should be studied further. These are also designed to be as thorough as possible, taking into account all studies on a subject, not just specific ones that make the case the most strong. At this point, you might be thinking, is that it? You forgot something. Well, honestly, I probably did. There are so many kinds of science that it really boggles the mind. But with any luck, I covered the vast majority of what you'll see on SciWorthy. Hopefully, you now have a better understanding about what different kinds of studies are for and what they can and can't tell you. Not all studies are experiments, but non-experimental papers like lit reviews and hypothesis papers are still a form of scholarship. The important commonality is the process. If it's not trying to break itself in the process of making itself, it's not science. Thanks for watching our Understanding the Research Process video series. Check out some of our other ones here. Remember to like this video so you can come back to it, or leave us a comment and let us know what else you want to know.